starts in 373 in your text. We're going to actually start the lecture on 374 with the total quality movement, just excellence again. So quality became a fashionable business during the 1990s, in the way excellence was fashionable during the 1980s. Although the total quality movement and the excellence movement had somewhat different origins, so far the effects of the quality movement have been much the same as the visible results of the excellence movement. A basically sound and well-intentioned philosophy has been and continues to be adopted, adapted, promoted, and implemented with extremely mixed results. The excellence movement was marked by one very good, highly readable, phenomenally successful nonfiction book, In Search of Excellence. This book was so successful that being concerned with excellence in the conduct of business activities of all kinds suddenly became fashionable. It also quickly became apparent that almost anything labeled with that newly popularized word would be immediately noticed by a great many people, some of whom would buy. Overall, the fundamental message in the In Search of Excellence was copied, reworked, repackaged, and supposedly expanded upon by countless authors, consultants, trainers, and others. Business organizations of all sizes began to claim excellence as a goal they had attained or were on their way to attaining. Many of the organizations that attempted to adopt excellence as a guiding philosophy of operations ran into the same problem that had stopped many otherwise effective organizations in their tracks: how to instill a philosophy in people so that it will eventually cause them to behave in a desired manner. Dropping down to that bottom paragraph, a great many people never see past the process and never truly adopt the philosophy. They simply go through the motions, appearing to do what they perceive top management wants them to do. Invariably, when a philosophy is proceduralized, that is, when a process is superimposed upon something as ethereal as a concept, theory, or belief, something is lost. And those who simply adopt the process as part of the job without buying into the philosophy will not truly reflect the philosophy in their behavior. So let's drop down to the differences between quality control, quality assurance, and quality management. For decades, many industries, largely those involved in manufacturing, have applied what is referred to as quality control. Quality control ordinarily concentrates on finding defects, rejecting defective products, and providing information with which to alter processes so they produce fewer defects. For some time, healthcare organizations have had what they call quality assurance. This consists largely of record scrutiny, under which errors consisting of departures from some dictated standard are counted, providing information with which steps can be taken to try to reduce the frequency of recurrence of the same kinds of errors. So in addition to correcting the processes that produce the errors, both quality control and quality assurance are often responsible for instituting more frequent quality checkpoints so that errors might be caught earlier. However, the most important similarity between quality control and quality assurance is that both focus primarily on finding errors after the fact, so they're both retrospective processes. It has been only in the recent 2 decades or so, using philosophical grounding in methods exported from the United States to Japan decades earlier and then later brought back as a new revolutionary management technique, that the emphasis on quality has been shifting from catch errors before they go out the door to avoid making the errors in the first place. Thus, we have the basis of the quality movement as embodied in labels such as total quality management and continuous quality improvement. So dropping down to old friends in new clothes. Many of the tools and techniques utilized under the TQM umbrella should look familiar to some people who have been in the workforce for a few years. Many of the current tools and techniques have been around for quite a while, some for decades. They have been resurrected and revitalized, and in some instances renamed. For example, a number of TQM implementation case histories mention the acronym TOPS, standing for Team-Oriented Problem Solving. As the name suggests, workers who have active concerns with various aspects of particular problems approach problem solving as a team with a common goal and purpose. These problem-solving teams espoused under TQM look, sound, and function the same as the quality circles promoted during the briefly popularity of the Japanese management. Also, essentially renaming quality circles or other TOPS looks-alikes, such as self-directed work teams and team-oriented process improvement. These particular labels are but two of the several similar designations that have emerged as representing a significant part of the path to continuous quality improvement. Quality circles were themselves nothing new when they were so named. In years past, many work organizations utilized what were called work simplification project teams, which were in function and intent essentially identified to quality circles and the problem-solving teams of TQM. Written about in the 1950s and earlier, work simplification teams found their way into hospital methods and improvement work as early as 1956. So moving over to the common driving force. Regardless of how many previously popular techniques are returned to the spotlight or how many genuinely new wrinkles are added, one ingredient remains fully as essential to TQM as it has been to any other approach by any other name. That crucial ingredient is top management commitment. This should come as no surprise. Top management commitment to new ideas and approaches has been a prerequisite to complete success for as long as an organized enterprise existed. Without sufficient top management commitment, most organized endeavors are destined to, at best, generate results that fall short of intentions, or at worst, fail altogether and cause harmful results or leave residual damage. Drop into that last paragraph on page 376. None of today's total quality programs will work as intended unless top management is actually involved in actively promoting the concept. Superficial, lip service only commitment at the top results in similar weak commitment at lower organizational levels. Beware of the skyrocket commitment of the top manager who gets all fired up over TQM, distributes information to everyone, creates a steering committee or advisory committee, and chairs the first meeting or two or three, but then starts missing meetings because of pressing business, and before too long, transfer the guiding role to a subordinate. A total quality program also will not work if managers, especially first-line supervisors, will not let go and truly delegate to employees. This means not simply giving employees the responsibility for doing different tasks or determining more efficient methods. It means also giving them the authority to make the decisions necessary to implement their own solutions. Furthermore, letting go also means accepting what the employees decide and living with it. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about total quality management on 377. As do some other approaches, total quality management has a reasonable chance of working if it is handled correctly. Activity undertaken in the name of quality improvement has at times been so widespread that the impression that everyone is doing it has placed considerable pressure on those who have yet to undertake quality management. With so much happening in the name of TQM in some organizations, top management commitment is bound to be genuine and lasting. And some organizations' successes will surely inspire others to try following a similar path. So have there been many genuine successes? Well, if you read in that next paragraph, it talks about a survey was conducted at the height of activity in the 1990s, but reported that only 35% of organizations implementing TQM were able to claim significant improvement in their overall effectiveness. And then another, somewhat later informal assessment suggested only about 20% had shown tangible results for their TQM activities. Some significant obstacles to TQM successes are presented by the volatility of the present-day healthcare environment. Few people in healthcare have to be told that the environment in which they function is in a constant state of change, much of it drastic, and the entire organizational structures are severely affected by mergers, acquisitions, downsizings, and even closures. A well-mounted TQM process generally takes 2 to 3 years to mature and begins to deliver its true potential. However, many organizations have found that those 2 to 3 years can bring changes that negate the effects of the TQM before they're realized. And some changes can quickly destroy the employee enthusiasm and motivation that took so long to develop. Consider a re-engineering effort with its attendant changes, including layoffs, which followed a full-blown TQM undertaking by about 2 years. The TQM process said to employees, "You are all important and your input and participation are valued." Then the subsequent re-engineering effort said, in effect, "Some of you are no longer needed." When this severe contradiction occurs, many, if not all, of the positive effects of the TQM effort are negated. All right, so what about Six Sigma? And where have we heard about Six Sigma before? Oh yes, I remember, PI in last semester. So, what about Six Sigma? Recently experiencing an apparent surge in popularity with organizations of various kinds, Six Sigma is a business management strategy developed at Motorola in the 1980s. It is presently finding fairly widespread use in many sectors of business and industry. Its intent is to improve the quality of process outputs by identifying and eliminating causes of defects or errors and eliminating variability in processes. It uses a number of quality management methods, including statistical methods, and creates an infrastructure of people within the organization. Each Six Sigma project follows a defined sequence of steps, moving toward quantified financial targets, such as reduction of costs or increase of profits. The term Six Sigma was first associated with manufacturing, specifically with statistical modeling of manufacturing processes. The maturity of a process can be described by a sigma rating, indicating the percentage of defect-free outcomes it produces. A Six Sigma process is one in which 99.99966% of the outputs are statistically expected to be free of defects. After Motorola's initial use, this goal became a byword for the management and engineering practices used to achieve it. Much of, some say most or all of, Six Sigma was inspired by 6 preceding decades of quality improvement approaches, such as the quality control, total quality management, continuous quality improvement, zero defects, quality circles, and others. Like these that came before it, Six Sigma is based on the following premises. Continuous effort to reduce variations in processes is of vital importance to organizational success. Business processes have characteristics that can be analyzed, measured, improved, and controlled. Achieving sustained quality improvement requires complete organizational commitment from the top down. And features that are said to differentiate Six Sigma from earlier quality improvement initiatives include a focus on achieving quantifiable financial returns from any Six Sigma project, increased emphasis on strong and passionate leadership and top management support, an infrastructure of champions and other advocates to lead the implementation of the Six Sigma approach, and a commitment to making decisions on the basis of verifiable data rather than assumptions and guesswork. And so if you keep reading down through there about Six Sigma, they're talking about the PDCA cycle, about how they had 2 methodologies that were inspired by PDCA. We covered one of those in PI, was called the DMAIC, DMAIC, and it has it listed there, define the problem and the project's goals, measure key aspects, and so on. When you drop to the last line on that first column on 379, it says, within the individual phases of either kind of project, Six Sigma utilizes many of the established tools of quality management and methods improvement. See if you remember these. Flowcharts, Pareto charts, Gantt charts, cause and effect diagrams, control charts, histograms, regression analyses, root cause analyses, run charts, cost-benefit analysis, decision trees, and numerous others. So be sure to read all about Six Sigma. All right, we're going to skip over into 380 under fad and practice. So we're getting into the productivity side of things here. Similar to the likes of motivation, commitment, and quality, productivity is a concept labeled with a single word that is frequently misused. Productivity is one of the different shaped gimmicks in a management toolbox that every once in a while is pulled out, polished up, and examined in a supposedly new light. In healthcare, productivity became a magic word during the latter half of the 1960s. During the 1960s, healthcare costs began to climb dramatically, fueled by the mid-decade establishment of Medicare and Medicaid, along with the advancing technology and ever-intensifying modes of treatment. Productivity improvement quickly became much of healthcare's supposed cure for many of its own ills. The challenge of productivity improvement soon became a challenge of measurement. If the results of a particular human activity were to be improved, there would have to be a means available for measuring those results both before and after the improvement intervention. In short, the apparent need for measures of output. There was a great deal of activity concerning measures of output, or so-called standards, during the latter half of the 1960s and into the 1970s. Much of the activity was grant-funded, supported at least in part by government foundations and various not-for-profit organizations such as state and regional hospital associations. And you can continue to read on in that chapter or that section about those different approaches. So we're going to move over, skipping a good bit of text. Again, be sure to read this text. But for lecture, we're going to just continue to follow along with the PowerPoint. So we're moving over to 383. So why be concerned with productivity? It is reasonable to ask why we should be concerned about productivity, especially in the face of reimbursement systems that only indirectly encourage concern for productivity. Productivity deserves attention because it is simply good management to want to apply available resources to best effect. It is possible in an organization as varied and complex as a modern hospital to redistribute resources from areas of savings to other essentials. And the inflationary spiral affects all business entities, and when resource inputs grow at a rate faster than system outputs, the cost of the consumer increases. And we should wish to maintain a voluntary system, and to do so the cost of healthcare cannot continue to rise out of proportion to all other sectors of the economy. And last, there is an increasing external pressure to hold costs down while continuing to produce quality healthcare. And you will always hear in healthcare, do more with the same or do more with less. And that is mostly true in these cases, is they want you to continue to produce more work, more output with less resources or the same resources that you have. All right, so moving over to 384. Furthermore, concern about productivity needs to be ongoing. One of the common errors prevalent in productivity's heyday was to regard productivity improvement as a one-time effort that could sweep through an organization and make it more efficient for all time. This is not so. Some of the larger, more obvious corrections are one-time changes, but the need for attention to productivity is continuing. When left unto itself, an activity will be subject to creeping inefficiencies that eventually accrue to a significant problem. Left unto themselves, most human activities will suffer diminished productivity, so regular attention is needed to keep them tuned and running efficiently.